My boyfriend dared to call out my daughter for coming home late. I already told him he has no right just because we live in his house. In fact, the house is already mine. We've been dating for 7 months. I've always known that a woman's worth is measured by how she commands her space, and when I met Andrew 7 months ago, I knew his space was destined to be mine. We hit it off instantly, and honestly, the chemistry was so intense that waiting a lifetime to move in seemed like a waste of my radiant, maternal energy. After only 3 months of dating, I moved myself and my teenage daughter, Sophie, into his house because a real relationship doesn't need testing periods or legalistic delays. Andrew has this little mortgage he pays every month, which he seems to think gives him some sort of moral high ground, but I've been the one filling these cold rooms with life and purpose. For 4 months, I've been the heart of this home, rearranging the soul of the place while he just exists in the background as a financial placeholder. I even went out and bought a beautiful home sweet home keychain for the spare set of keys I gave to Sophie, cementing her place in this hierarchy and signaling that we are the true residents here. It's truly exhausting having to explain basic social contracts to a man who thinks a bank loan makes him a king. I've put in the emotional equity of decorating, managing the kitchen, and bringing my daughter into this environment, which is worth far more than any dollar amount a bank could track. Andrew's attempts to assert control are just a sign of his own deep-seated insecurity because he knows I've rightfully taken the lead in our domestic life. He spent the rest of the night sulking in the bedroom after I corrected him, which I found incredibly immature considering I was just standing up for my parental rights. I expect a full apology for the way he spoke to Sophie, or at the very least, an acknowledgement that this house belongs to the family unit I created. He's lucky to have a woman who knows her worth and isn't afraid to claim the territory she deserves from the universe. The trouble reached a boiling point last night when Sophie came home at 2 a.m., which is perfectly reasonable for a girl of her age exploring her independence in a safe neighborhood. Instead of being a silent provider who appreciates the life I've brought to his dull existence, Andrew had the audacity to be waiting in the living room like some Victorian headmaster. He started lecturing her about safety, curfews, and the rules of his house, as if he has any say in how I raise my flesh and blood. I walked into that room and shut him down before he could even finish his patronizing sentence about the front door lock or his supposed responsibility. I don't care who signed the bank papers. The moment I stepped over that threshold and started making this place habitable, the law of occupancy shifted entirely in my favor. If we are a family, then this is a family home, and you don't charge your family for the privilege of existing under your roof. I looked Andrew straight in the eye and told him that if he wanted to play the role of a father, he should have contributed to her DNA instead of just checking his bank balance. It's a simple biological fact that he seems to find offensive, which only proves how much he needs to work on his fragile ego. He looked absolutely shocked, probably because he's used to women who bow down to his property owner title, but I am a woman of conviction and territorial strength. Sophie's freedom is a direct reflection of my authority in this house, and I won't have her spirit crushed by someone who is essentially just a glorified landlord. Andrew tried to stutter something about mutual respect, but I didn't give him the satisfaction of a response, walking away with my head held high as the true mistress of the house. My mind is made up, and he needs to learn that in this home, my word is the final law regardless of who pays the bills. I've spent today reinforcing my position, making sure Andrew feels the weight of his mistake through my icy, justified silence. He thinks that because he pays for the roof, he gets to decide when the people under it breathe, but he's forgotten that a house is just bricks without a woman's touch. I've already planned to change some of the art in the living room to reflect my daughter's personality more than his boring, minimalist tastes. If he wants to act like a stranger with the rules, then I will treat him like a guest in my family's sanctuary. It's about winning the battle of wills, and I have never lost a debate when it comes to my own rights. He needs to realize that his mortgage is a footnote compared to the historical presence of my family in these rooms. Sophie knows I have her back, and that bond is something Andrew will never be able to buy or regulate. I noticed him looking at the home sweet home keychain on the counter earlier, and the look of defeat on his face was almost satisfying. He knows deep down that I've moved in emotionally and spiritually, and those are ties that no eviction or argument can easily sever. I've started documenting every time I do a chore or buy a grocery item to prove my sweat equity, in case he ever tries to bring up the house again. My friend told me that in some cultures, once you feed a person in a home, the home becomes a shared vessel, and I've cooked at least 10 meals here. That's more than enough to establish my reign and dismiss his petty claims of ownership. He's just a man with a deed, but I'm a woman with a vision, and visions always outlast paperwork. Every time I walk through the halls, I feel the law of occupancy vibrating through the floorboards, confirming that I am where I belong. Andrew's insistence on his rules is just a desperate attempt to feel relevant in a house that has already outgrown him. I've told Sophie to ignore him if he tries to talk to her about her schedule again. She answers to me, the person who actually cares about her growth. We are a unit, and he is an accessory that hasn't quite figured out his place on the shelf yet. If he doesn't like the way I run things, he can go find a cold, empty apartment where he can be the king of nothing. Here, in this house, the crown is already firmly on my head, and I don't plan on taking it off for anyone. I've started looking into how to legally change the mailing address for all our sensitive documents to this house to further solidify our status. Andrew saw a piece of mail for Sophie today and looked like he was about to say something, but my sharp glare silenced him immediately. He knows better than to challenge me when I'm in this headspace of total clarity and maternal protection. My daughter deserves a home where she isn't watched like a prisoner, and I am the only one capable of providing that environment. It doesn't matter if we've been here 4 months or 4 minutes, the intensity of my intent makes it our permanent residence. I am the architect of our reality, and I've decided that Andrew is lucky to be a part of it as long as he stays in his lane. The level of disrespect he showed by waiting up for her is something I will bring up in every argument until he truly repents. It wasn't about her safety, it was about him trying to mark his territory like an animal, and I won't have my daughter caught in his power play. I've already moved some of his things in the bathroom to make more room for my luxury skincare products, a small but necessary reminder of who truly occupies the space. If he can't handle a woman who takes up room, then he shouldn't have invited a queen into his castle. This house is mine by right of presence, and I'll fight anyone who tries to tell me that a piece of paper at the bank says otherwise. Finally, I've decided that if Andrew wants to coexist with us, he needs to start paying me a consultation fee for the emotional labor I perform by living here. I am the one who makes this house feel like a home, and that kind of service isn't free, even if he thinks the mortgage covers everything. I am standing my ground because my daughter's freedom is the only thing that matters in this patriarchal struggle for control. Andrew is just an obstacle I'm currently navigating, and he'll either learn his place or be pushed aside by the sheer force of my will. The home sweet home of keychain is just the beginning. Soon, the entire house will reflect nothing but my image and my rules. I am the owner in every sense that matters to the universe. Main story comments. Anonymous user 1 says, "You've only been there 4 months, girl. It is literally his house, he pays the bills, and you're just a girlfriend with an attitude." OP's reply, "Time is completely subjective and your logic is hollow. I've put emotional equity into these walls by simply existing here, which is worth far more than a soulless bank loan could ever measure." Anonymous user 2 says, "He's just worried about a teenager out at 2 a.m. That's what a responsible adult does when they care about someone in their house." OP's reply, "He's not worried about her, he's power tripping because he's deeply insecure about the unbreakable bond my daughter and I share. He wants to control us, not protect us." Update 1. It's been 3 days since my last update, and instead of the groveling apology I expected, Andrew tried to pull some sit down and talk nonsense with me. He actually had the nerve to suggest we discuss boundaries and shared expectations, as if I'm some kind of unruly tenant instead of his life partner. I laughed right in his face because boundaries are for neighbors you don't like or strangers at the grocery store, not for people who share a bed. If he wants to talk about boundaries, he should start by respecting the boundary of my absolute authority over my daughter's life and schedule. Since he was so focused on his space, I decided to show him what a reallocation of resources actually looks like for the benefit of our family unit. While he was at work, I took it upon myself to finally do something about that drab, depressing guest room he calls his office. It was filled with boring filing cabinets, a desk that looked like it belonged in a 90s cubicle, and zero personality whatsoever. I spent the afternoon moving all his work equipment into the garage. It's a much more appropriate place for a business anyway. I transformed that room into a chic, vibrant lounge for Sophie and her friends so they have a place to hang out without feeling his judgmental landlord energy. I even moved in a plush rug and some fairy lights to give it the she queen energy it was missing. I'm a visionary, and I refuse to let prime real estate go to waste on spreadsheets when my daughter needs a sanctuary. When Andrew got home and saw his desk next to the lawnmower, he looked like he had seen a ghost, which was honestly a bit much. I told him straight up that my presence is the biggest upgrade this house has ever had, and he should be thanking me for the free interior design. He didn't even say thank you, he just stood there shaking, clearly overwhelmed by my initiative and strength. I explained that in a real family, we prioritize the needs of the children over the hobbies of the adults, even if that hobby is his job. He needs to realize that I am the one who defines the energy of this home now, and my decisions are final. If he can't handle a woman who takes charge, he shouldn't have invited me to move in and fix his life. I spent the evening lounging in the new room with Sophie, and the home sweet home keychain looked perfect hanging on the door handle. Andrew spent the night in the garage organizing, which I think was just a way for him to hide because he couldn't handle the truth of my logic. I've already planned to paint the walls of the new lounge a soft lavender to match Sophie's aesthetic, regardless of what Andrew thinks about the resale value. This house is a living document of our lives, not a cold investment property for him to hoard. I am the curator of our domestic happiness, and I will continue to reclaim every square inch of this property until it reflects my soul. He'll come around once he sees how much happier the house is with my touch in every corner. Update 1 comments. Anonymous user 1 says, "You are going to get evicted so fast it'll make your head spin. You can't just move a man's office to the garage in his own house." OP's reply, "He loves me far too much to ever do something so drastic and heartless. Besides, I have my mail delivered here now, so I'm legally unshakable." Anonymous user 2 says, "Moving his office is a huge violation of his personal space and his livelihood. You are acting like a total nightmare." OP's reply, "It wasn't a violation, it was a reallocation of resources, for the benefit of the family unit. I'm thinking about our future, while he's stuck thinking about a desk." Update 2. It's been 1 week since my last update, and Andrew has officially devolved into what I can only describe as a domestic abuser. Without a single word of discussion, he changed the Wi-Fi password and told Sophie she isn't allowed to use the kitchen after 10 p.m. because she makes too much noise. This is a blatant attempt to starve and isolate my daughter, and I won't stand for it in my own home. I decided to consult a legal expert, a close friend of mine who has watched 3 full seasons of a high-stakes law show, and she confirmed my suspicions. Since I have improved the home by redecorating and moving the furniture to create a better flow, I actually have a legitimate claim to the deed through improvement rights. Tonight, when Andrew tried to complain about the lavender paint I bought for the lounge, I shut him down with cold, hard facts. I told him he's lucky I don't charge him for my professional interior design services and the vibe equity I've added to this property. I informed him that my legal counsel suggested I have a right to the title now because I've treated this place like an owner while he acts like a bitter tenant. He didn't even argue back, which just goes to show that my logic is impenetrable and he knows he's in the wrong. He just stayed silent for an hour, staring at the wall, probably calculating how much he owes me for my work. Then, he started packing a small bag with his essentials, which I found quite dramatic and unnecessary. He's probably going to a hotel to think about how wrong he is and how much he's hurt our family unit, with his petty rules. It's a classic move for men who can't handle a strong, territorial woman. They run away to lick their wounds when they lose a debate. I told him as he was leaving that he should use the time to reflect on his behavior and maybe buy some flowers for Sophie to apologize for the Wi-Fi. I am the one who stays, and the one who stays is the one who truly owns the territory. I've already started looking at new couches for the living room since he took up so much space with his boring old one. This house is finally starting to feel like it truly belongs to me and my daughter, without his oppressive mortgage payer energy. The house feels so much lighter with him gone, like the walls are finally breathing now that the owner isn't here to stifle them. Sophie and I ordered pizza and stayed up until 3 a.m. in the new lounge, celebrating our victory over his rules. I've even started thinking about changing the locks myself, just to ensure that when he comes back, he has to knock and ask for permission to enter our sanctuary. It would be a powerful symbolic gesture to show him that his name on a piece of paper doesn't mean anything in the face of my presence. My home sweet home keychain is the only authority I recognize in this house. I am the queen of this castle, and the king has been exiled for his own good. Update 2 comments. Anonymous user 1 says, "He's packing because he's done with you, you delusional woman. He's not taking space, he's escaping a squatter." OP's reply, "He's just taking space because he can't handle a strong, territorial woman who knows her legal rights. He'll be back once he realizes he can't live without my energy." Anonymous user 2 says, "Does the keychain come with a legal title? Because you're a law show friend is going to get you thrown on the street." OP's reply, "The keychain represents my intent, and in the eyes of the universe, intent is reality. Legal papers are just shadows of what I've already manifested." Update 3. It's been 4 days since my last update, and Andrew hasn't come back, but today something truly bizarre happened that I'm sure is a mistake. 2 men in cheap suits showed up at my door and handed me a notice of termination of license to occupy. I almost laughed in their faces and told them they were clearly at the wrong house because I am the owner here. I tried to explain the concept of improvement rights and my home sweet home keychain, but they were incredibly rude and just kept telling me I had to leave. I slammed the door on them because I don't have time for people who don't understand how domestic sovereignty works. When I finally called Andrew to scream at him for letting these thugs harass me, he didn't pick up, which is a new level of cowardice. Instead, I got a call from his sister, who has always been jealous of my influence and my superior taste. She told me, and I'm sure she's lying, that Andrew doesn't actually own the house himself. Apparently, the house is owned by his parents' trust, and they are the ones who filed the notice to kick us out. She had the nerve to say they don't know me, and that I've damaged the property by moving the office to the garage. This is a clear case of fraud because Andrew let me believe he was the sole owner for 7 months. If I had known he was just a puppet for his parents' trust, I would have demanded to speak to the trustees months ago to establish my position. Andrew lied to me by omission, and now I am being targeted by a patriarchal conspiracy involving real estate and his entire family. They are trying to treat me like I'm some kind of intruder when I have poured my soul into these rooms and painted the guest room lavender. I am a victim of a systemic attempt to disenfranchise a powerful woman who dared to claim her space. I'm currently looking for a real lawyer, not just a fan of law shows, to sue Andrew for emotional distress and fraud for not disclosing his true housing status. I refuse to be intimidated by a piece of paper from a trust that has never even stepped foot in my kitchen. This is my home, and I have established a life here that cannot be erased by some legal technicality. Sophie is getting nervous, but I told her that mommy is a warrior and I will protect our kingdom from these invaders. I've started barricading the doors with the furniture I moved, just to make sure they know I mean business. If they want us out, they're going to have to deal with the full force of my emotional equity. I am the heart of this house, and you can't just transplant a heart without killing the whole body. Update 3 comments. Anonymous user 1 says, you're being kicked out by the actual owners, and Andrew's parents probably think you're a literal insane person for what you did to the office. OP's reply, Andrew lied by omission by letting me believe he was the sole owner. This is a clear case of fraud against me and my daughter's stability. Anonymous user 2 says, how's that authority feeling now? You're about to be homeless because you thought a keychain gave you deed rights. OP's reply, I am a victim of a patriarchal conspiracy involving real estate and a family that is terrified of a woman who knows her worth. Update 4. It's been 24 hours since my last update, and the absolute unthinkable has happened through no fault of my own. Sophie and I went to the mall to buy some gorgeous new curtains for our living room, since I was determined to redecorate the main space to match my mood. When we got back, the locks had been changed, and my key, the one with the home sweet home keychain, snapped off right in the lock. I stood there staring at the broken plastic, realizing that the house had literally been stolen from me by Andrew and his parents. They did this while we were out, which is a cowardly move by people who know they couldn't face me in person. We are currently huddled in a cheap, disgusting motel that smells like old carpet and failure, and I have never felt more betrayed. Andrew finally sent a text saying all of our things, including the desk I moved to the garage, are in a storage unit that he's only paid for 1 month. He didn't even have the decency to call me. He just threw our entire lives into a box and changed the locks like we were nothing. The irony of the situation is that Sophie is now blaming me for us being homeless, as if I wasn't the one fighting for her rights this whole time. She had a total breakdown in the motel room, screaming that she wants to go live with her biological father because he actually has a house. My daughter's lack of loyalty is the most painful part of this entire ordeal. She doesn't see that I was trying to build a throne for us. My attempt to seize the throne and secure our future ended with me losing the house, the man I thought I could mold, and my daughter's respect. I'm sitting here looking at the curtains I bought, which have no windows to hang on, and I realized that the universe has a very cruel way of testing its strongest warriors. Andrew is probably back in his house right now, moving his boring desk back into his boring office, oblivious to the fact that he lost a queen. I'm currently looking into the motel's occupancy laws to see if I can at least claim this room as a permanent residence while I plan my next move. The home sweet home keychain might be broken, but my spirit is just temporarily displaced.